I'm Will Murray, Research Director for Interactive Driving Systems, and we work closely with Lloyds TSB Autolease. A duty of care policy is really the requirement of organisations to manage the risks of their people while they're driving. And particularly in recent years, the vehicle is seen as part of the workplace under health and safety regulations. So organisations have a requirement or duty of care to manage those risks. I think really companies face four main risks. There's a financial or cost risk, there's a legal risk, there's a business risk, and there's also a risk to society, because driving is the biggest risk, if you like, that most people face. Traditionally, we've known that there's quite a big road toll in the UK. Something like 3,000 people a year get killed on the roads, but we've never really known how many of those involve people driving for work. But in the last few years, we've had better statistics which show around about a quarter of those fatalities involve people at work, and even more if you include commuting, which means that the government has started to focus on it by making the vehicle part of the workplace under health and safety regs, by linking government agencies, the Department for Transport and Health and Safety Executive are now working together to manage the risks. So I think really two main reasons. One, the extent of the problem, and secondly, that's led to more legislation and regulation to mean that organisations really have to do it. Really, all organisations should have a policy, however large or small they are, whatever types of vehicles people are driving in those organisations. Anybody requiring people to drive as part of their work should have a duty of care policy in place related to driving. There are really four main stages in relation to duty of care. The first is to do some kind of review of where you are now, so to look at claims analysis, do a safety audit or gap analysis. That will identify typically what the risks are, and usually they're in relation to management, to journeys, to vehicles, and to the drivers who are making the journeys. Once you've done that and you've got a pretty good idea of what the risks are, you can then start to put in place policies and programs to address the risks. And then really the fourth stage will be to have some kind of review to make sure that those policies and programs have actually had the impact you expected them to. So in my opinion, anybody who has to drive for work should be considered as high risk. If you were asking me who was most at risk, I would say particularly young guys, young people in a sales environment, quite often given high-performance cars and quite heavy sales targets. They're particularly at risk. Also, I'd say senior managers in organisations are particularly at risk because they have to be seen to lead by example. So if the senior managers don't do the right things when they're driving, nobody else in the organisation is going to. And probably the third really high-risk group is people driving liveried vehicles, because they've got the name of your organisation on the side of them and they portray the image of your brand and your organisation. So overall, everyone's at risk, but there are particularly high-risk groups, and really the beginning point is to do some kind of risk assessment programme to make sure you can target those risks appropriately. It's important to check licences just to ensure that the people who are driving company vehicles on company business are actually legal. So really anybody who might be driving a company business, whether they're in their own vehicle, in a hire car, in a lease car, in a company car, they should be checked. Similarly, if you've got family members driving company provided vehicles, they should also be checked just to ensure that they're legal. Now, traditionally that would have involved a quite kind of paper admin heavy process of checking paper licences manually. Increasingly though, most organisations are now checking licences direct with DVLA through an electronic process, which is relatively easy to do. You just need to get the driver to sign a mandate to say it's okay for the company to speak to DVLA, and then you get electronically, you get data back from DVLA, which can feed into a big database. So you've got a listing of all your drivers, what points they've got on their licence, and whether the licence they have is relevant to that vehicle that they're driving for work. If there was one thing that we were going to advise organisations to do, it would be to undertake some kind of risk or gap analysis. You'd be amazed, even in the best organisations we work with, when they do the review, they still find things that are wrong or things they could improve on. So if we were going to advise people to start anywhere, it would be to do some kind of review and use that to identify gaps and then improve their processes and procedures.